Some of the smartest and most creative Christian writers of the 20th century realized they had to express the age-old faith in a new way if they hoped to reach an increasingly secularized audience. One of the most remarkable of these literary evangelists was the Oxford linguistics specialist J.R.R. Tolkien. Starting in the 1930s, he composed a series of books in the genre of fantasy fiction that also managed powerfully to carry the gospel message. The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings were rollicking adventure tales, but they were also the means by which Tolkien was subtly evangelizing the imagination of his millions of readers. I'm in the back room of the Eagle and Child pub in Oxford, and this room was the favorite gathering place of a group of scholars who called themselves the Inklings, and they were mostly literature professors. And they would gather here to drink and to converse and to read their works to each other. So The Lord of the Rings was read here for the first time by Tolkien to this rather distinguished audience. Tolkien was a Catholic, and he said in one of his letters that The Lord of the Rings began implicitly Catholic, ended explicitly so. And man, you see it everywhere in that story. The principal problem is a ring of power, which they have to get rid of. They say it's the first great adventure story where the idea was not to get something, but to get rid of something, you know? Well, there's the biblical idea of original sin, of pride, of power, which bedevils us. Even the best of us want to put on the ring of power. The idea was now to get rid of it. How do you get rid of it? Frodo. So, great hero, great military figure, great political. No, this little halfling, hobbit, right? So small that no one would notice him, who's able to sneak behind enemy lines, sneak into the land of dysfunction, and thereby make this great sacrificial act. So he's a Christ figure. So, by the way, is Gandalf. So Gandalf the wizard. Christ is also prophet. He's the speaker, the preacher. Gandalf, too, though, goes through a death and resurrection. Remember, he falls down the great abyss. They presume he's dead. And then he rises as Gandalf the White. Aragorn is the king. Christ is the king. And Aragorn, too, has to go down into the underworld, and he comes back up as the triumphant king. Frodo's the priest, makes a sacrifice. Gandalf is the prophet, and Aragorn is the king. So Tolkien was, in this really textured way, telling the story of Christ and how he conquers evil, evangelizing the imagination.
I think one reason why Tolkien was so successful, both as a writer and as an evangelist, is that he met people through a form that they were naturally attracted to, which was literature. Oftentimes we try to reach people and evangelize them through theology and philosophy and doctrine and teaching, which is good and is needed, but most people are not naturally attracted to that mode of teaching. So what Tolkien did was to say, people are interested in stories, everybody loves stories. What if I can inject the truths and morals of my Catholic faith into those, and again, slip them unnoticed past people, and so I can get get those values imbibed in the people without them even recognizing what's going on.
Now that everyone's read them or they've all watched the movies, I'll say, oh, by the way, that was a Catholic story. That pill you just swallowed, that was a Catholic pill, you know? And so maybe if you said right off the bat, oh, Tolkien's trying to make you into a Catholic, they wouldn't read it, but now they've read it because it's so engaging to the imagination. But then after the fact, I think it's okay to say, oh, by the way, that's filled with Catholic theme. It's through subtlety and indirection very often that the message gets in. If you start, banging the Bible and just explicitly proselytizing, it might turn a lot of people off. But tell them a story that's a rollicking good adventure and is also filled with the Christian thing, you're preparing them. You might say they're doing what we call today pre-evangelization. It's kind of a preparation for the explicit evangelization.